Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge with a usual but a surprise Rebel today because Pete is doing his annual MRI examination for the NFL. So we have none other than Justin Nugent joining us today, folks, on the Rebel's Edge. We'll be breaking down stocks, giving you macro minute as well as fantastic futures and sports, all that right after this. Bang. Welcome back, everybody. And that guy, you can tell, is not Pete for several reasons. Might be the neck tattoos. It might be the hair. Pete never had dark hair, by the way. He's always been a blonde. Of my three brothers, he's the only one that got the blonde from my mom's side. But it's wonderful to welcome you back to the show, Justin. How are you doing in Hawaii today?
Oh, I'm doing lovely, and the market is being super interesting. It's just a great day all around.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, let's dive right in. As you know, folks, we kick it off with Macro Minute, a little bit of fantastic futures. On the macro side, I'm going to say Germany. If I only put out one word, it would be Germany. And why is that? Well, because their economic data is concerning. They are the largest economy in Europe, as most of you know, and they've struggled. I saw, Justin, that Porsche, their exports of Porsche fell dramatically, and it turns out that's not the only thing that is fallen in terms of both their exports and their imports. Seems like Europe's largest economy not doing so well right now. What do you got, sir?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like all those people who said the American excellence trade was done and flooded out to every stock market that wasn't in the United States maybe made an error. Germany's economy is playing limbo. But for us, we're about to have our earnings season, and Piper Sandler released some kind of good news. The ratio of negative to positive pre-announcements is unusually low, and that may foreshadow a relatively strong earnings season. So that's my macro minute for the day.
Well, I like it. What I don't like is that on our fantastic futures, we're watching crude climb a little bit despite OPEC opening the spigot a bit. Maybe they didn't open it as much as people thought. The truce has been holding, so this is not news based on that truce between Israel and Iran, but crude oil moving up to 68. That's good for Landman. It's good for Tommy Norris. It's not necessarily good for the rest of us, Justin.
That's true. For me, so quick flashback, about a month ago in the cocktail hour, I talked about Ethereum. I said we're probably going to see some attention on this sort of redheaded stepchild of all the crypto. And here we are seeing some attention. It's not up a ton, but there's a huge historic short position built up against them. And I actually think the real fireworks are in the stocks that are building Ethereum treasuries. BMNR is up something like 1,700% in a month. Blink and you missed it. But BTBT, BTCS, SBET, all popping today. We had an SBET trade in the roundup right at the end of last week. They're up 25% today, or at least they were at one point, cooled off a bit. My takeaway, probably forget buying Ethereum. I would say focus on what you can trade with options. Specifically, that trade is probably finding the next micro strategy. Public companies stacking crypto on the balance sheet. It's your flavor of the month growth trade. And if ETH breaks out, then you probably see some of these stocks make some pretty parabolic moves.
Yeah, and as Justin knows, folks, we talked about Tom Lee, the founder of Fundstrat, becoming the chairman over there at BMNR, Bitminer, and that's fabulous. I love Tom, and as we said yesterday, and Justin just reiterated, there are firms like Bitmine that are stacking the Ethereum contracts, and I think that's a good thing. Everybody diving into Bitcoin at the all-time high, we'll see how that plays out. I'm not saying it doesn't go higher, folks. I'm not a doubter. I think it will go higher. I think we'll see 150 this year out of Bitcoin. But I think Ethereum, just as Justin said, with the shorts in there and everything else, I think it represents a better value versus Bitcoin at the same levels. Bitcoin at 108, Ethereum where it is right now. All right, Justin, let's dive into a little AI, because we've got AI stocks moving up like crazy. We've got Big Bear Holdings and SoundHound. And a lot of us, we were like, huh? But of course, SoundHound does an awful lot with their voice recognition. And Big Bear helps build ships for the U.S. Navy, submarines, and so forth. And they have facial recognition technology that's also used in airport security. Any of you who have been flying lately have seen that. TSA will scan your face. In some cases, they want that more than the ID that you carry with you. So both Big Bear AI as well as SoundHound getting a big lift today, Justin.
Yeah, for sure. So you said it really, really well. They're AI for Navy subs, airport security, facial recognition. They're kind of like a little cousin to Palantir in a way. Contracts with the DoD, et cetera, literally making waves in naval shipyards. We called this out in the roundup last week as well in a post that was called Welcome to Growth Season. Here's what's on our shopping list. We gave a specific trade there in the August calls. BBAI obviously up nicely. We also saw UOA in there, and hint, hint, more UOA in that came this morning. But anyway, I just think this is really what you want to be focusing on, right? The non-Mag 7 names that are starting to run hot. You're starting to see the RSP, equal weight S&P do pretty well. The IWM is starting to catch a bid. I think this is where the sun is shining, and not in something like the solar sector, which got scorched today.
Yeah, got scorched. I like that. Well, we also had unusual activity in Big Bear Holdings, folks. Yeah, it was back at the beginning of June, but look at what they were buying. December 550s that were about $1.50 higher than where the stock was trading. And today, after a nice 12% rally or so, it pushes to over 860. And that is a really nice trade. Obviously, more than double in a month, which tells you that the option trade probably did awfully well for those of you who were in that one. And as always, I'll just remind you to go to follow that link that Jared will put up there so that you could subscribe and catch some of the same lightning in a bottle that Justin, Pete, and I are catching from this unusual activity. All right, let's take a look at our next group of stocks, and it was led off by the one and only Justin Nugent, and that is solar stocks getting scorched. And why? Well, just for grins, Justin, I threw it into Grok to see what they said. And they said what I thought, which was that President Donald Trump's executive order is basically rolling back a lot of these green energy subsidies. Certain ones that are already under construction will be able to continue, but Solar Edge, Enphase, First Solar, they are in trouble because a lot of them, in particular, Solar Edge, they rely on these subsidies to sell any of us folks. Oh, do you want this on your house? Do you want this on your building? Oh, by the way, the government will pay for X percent of it. Without that X percent, these guys are struggling, right, Justin?
Absolutely. Yeah. In solar stocks, it's basically a total eclipse right now. Ever since the election, the sector's been in the dark. I'm going to stop now with the policy headwinds, new tariffs, and tax credit uncertainty. Really, it's just a tough scene to be in. I think you could always make money trying to pick a bottom, but I wouldn't. With so many other great names catching so many tailwinds, I would just say, why bother trying to, catch bounces in these? It's a tough scene for solar for a while. A lot of other great places to be in, like the next name that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, well, and even some insider selling in First Solar, I'll note for you guys. Was it massive? No, it's 288,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money, but it's not, the chairman dumping millions of shares or anything like that. So don't read too much into that. Read more into what Justin and I just discussed about what's in the big, beautiful bill and what's not continuing because of what's in the big, beautiful bill. He likes fossil fuel. He likes nukes. He's not necessarily a big fan of some of these wind and solar plays, he being the president of the United States. All right, guys, how about this one? SoFi, just like Justin said, again, he's leading me into these, folks. I'll have to teach Pete to do that, or Justin will have to teach Pete to do that. SoFi, of course, a big fintech firm, broadening access to private markets. Many of you know that Pete and I really are front and center with some of these private markets, some of these start engines and the like, where you can invest in these new technologies before they're public, so that you can catch that lightning in a bottle long before it's a publicly traded stock. But SoFi, that's what they're doing. And you know what? We show that there was unusual activity. People were buying in SoFi ahead of this. And SoFi was $17.91 at the end of June. And today it's nearly $3 higher than that. So those November 24 calls, as always, I'll cause you to at least think about, they didn't want a short-term trade, folks. They want a long-term bull trade, and they're buying November options. So again, another winner for our subscribers and a great deal for SoFi, which is up more than double this year.
Yeah, they're a great name. They're kind of doing the same thing that Robinhood did a moment ago, right? They're trying to give access to things like OpenAI, SpaceX, Epic Games. They're the Fortnite people. Through some new funds, that's really exciting. And if it works, it probably blows the doors off of SoFi's upper resistance around 25, in my view. I just want people to be cautious and remember DDA, discipline dictates action, as these guys so often say, because Robinhood just did something like this, and they got a little bit of pushback from OpenAI because OpenAI said, hey, we got nothing to do with this. Now, ideally, look, investment being democratized for everyone's a good thing for both the investor and for the companies that people are investing in. I think it ends up working out. But if you have profits in SoFi, I would just make sure that you're taking some profit or rolling or spreading the trade or just doing something to use those options to your advantage to keep that risk down.
Yeah, great advice. As you folks know, regular viewers and listeners, I don't like buying way out of the money calls. To me, when a stock's trading nearly 18 bucks, 24 is way out of the money. I would much rather be buying the 18 calls, something more at the money. And Justin's exactly right. If you were in something like that, if you're one of the people who listen when we talk about that, then by all means, you should be rolling. Again, I can't make the trade for you. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I would do, which is if I've got a call at the 18 strike and we're now trading nearly 21, I'm going to be taking money off the table, just as Justin said, and then jumping into a higher strike in the case of calls like this one. I would more likely be in the 20s or 21s out in November still, but that's again what we do. But the three of us, we're professional traders, folks. If you want to manage your money like a professional trader, I think you should at least pay attention to how we manage risk. All right, let's do one more, because this one, of course, Oprah helped put it on the map in a big way when she joined and owned a bunch of shares, as well as became a spokesperson for Weight Watchers. Well, they went bankrupt in November. They filed for bankruptcy protection, not liquidation, protection. They have emerged today. So that would be Weight Watchers' new symbol. Since it has a Q at the end of it, folks, you know there's a bankruptcy involved. So WGHT, like weight, sort of if you drop the some of the letters, and the letter Q at the end signifies that this is indeed a bankrupt company. But they shed an awful lot of debt. They've got some deals with Novo Nordisk for, their GLP-1 drugs. What do you think of this one, Justin? Would you take a flyer on it, if you will, or do you want to get fat on this one since Justin's so full of these puns today?
Yeah, I like the idea of a flyer more than stuff in my face on this one. But I do like what they're doing with their business, right? They're not just slimming down the balance sheet. They're really trying to pivot. I think that the weight loss drugs are interesting. kind of an interesting twist given their history of sort of being mostly company that helped with like diet and lifestyle stuff. And I know that they're still doing that. And obviously those things all go really well together. So I think that that's good and cool. And they've dropped a lot of debt. I think it's sometimes tough to get in on these types of, bankruptcy related names myself, just because I'm not super fluent in the legalese required to navigate some of these trades. But all I would say about that is that's okay, guys. If you take this and you make money on it, that's awesome. And if you are someone like me who prefers to trade things that they just know a little bit more of the trading pattern or that particular stock a little bit better, that's always okay too.
Yep. Truly, folks. And as always, if you want to learn more about any of this, you can check out our book. The free book offer is still going on, and it is itsnotanoption.com. Just as we told Dave Portnoy yesterday, it's not an option. To give you guys an idea, Tesla did rally. It rallied nearly, let's call it $9 from when Dave got in yesterday. Bang. Nice job, Dave. Well, he put up $10 million. That qualifies for about 33,000 shares, folks. That is worth some $9 times 33,000. That is how much he made. Let's call it, 290,000, 330,000, somewhere in that rough range. So that's a nice profit, but it's on a $10 million investment. Our trade that we put on, the 295s versus the 335s in August. By the way, full disclosure, I also put on a September spread very similar to that. This particular trade in options is up 72,000, not 300,000 like Dave's trade. But I put up a lot less money. Dave's trade was 10 million. If we simulated a $10 million trade, which I did not do, I trade 100 contracts. I don't trade hundreds like Dave's trade would have been. But it was basically a really good day for us. It's up 17% in a day versus Dave's trade that's up 3%. Could Dave beat us? I don't think he can. Unless the stock goes to 400, I don't think Dave can beat us. He can make a nice profit on his trade eventually. He will do very well on it. He's already done pretty decent. But if you really want to know more about options, folks, go to itsnotanoption.com. And we'll be following up on this trade, both the winners and the losers, because if all of a sudden Tesla takes a dump, Dave's going to feel the pain a lot more than we will. And maybe that's how we'll convince him to come over to the options side of the world, Justin. All right, let's dive into Novak Djokovic and some of the, I think the guy's name is Skinner, Yannick Skinner, that advanced to the quarterfinals in Wimbledon. But there was a little controversy, and it might involve technology. And those of you who are fans, as I am, of Wimbledon might note that they use, when you've watched in the past, you've seen how they can freeze the ball and see whether or not the ball touched the line, for instance, or was it in? Was it in, or was the ball outside of the line and it would be out? Well, they use tech now to determine that. And there were some questionable calls by their AI or by their tech that implied strongly that it was wrong. And the question is it wrong more than a human being might be wrong? Because the linesmen and lineswomen do that with their eyes at a ball that's sometimes going 140 miles an hour. What do you think, Justin? Good idea or bad idea integrating this tech at this point in Wimbledon?
Yeah, it's almost like we don't need to replace every single job with AI as soon as it's possible. Wimbledon's new AI line judges are supposed to be smarter than humans, but right now they're about as reliable as a rain forecast in London. And, certain players are complaining about it too. Emma Raducanu and Jack Draper. Raducanu allegedly lost a point because the ump missed a clear out ball. So, kind of went from hawk eye to blind eye. Not necessary in my view. I thought it was fine the way it was. Sometimes things are just okay with human beings and no technology.
Yeah, and sometimes the technology can help if you're determined, if you're using it to not make every call, but go to the questionable calls and then look at your tech and see what the tech determined. Was that ball outside the line? Was it on the line? And so forth. In other words, for tennis, was it in or out? For a goal in hockey, did it cross the line or not? Reviewing those, was the player safe at first or was he out? Those kinds of things. I think that's a better way to go than just letting the machine have at it and determine all of the in or out status in the case of tennis. All right, we got one more, Justin. How about Major League highlights? Manny Machado, all-star player for San Diego Padres. He had his 2,000th career hit. So fabulous job. You know, we give you a big salute, Manny. And it was not enough, though, to keep them from losing the game. But now we are facing just this next week with the All-Star game, Justin. Now, are you a fan of the home run contest, for instance, or the game itself, or not at all?
I don't watch a ton of baseball myself, but home run contests are pretty cool. They're a little bit more exciting, I would say, than a typical game.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I can't remember the last time I watched more than an inning or two of the All-Star game, but I have watched on occasion the home run derby, and I find it kind of interesting. I'm surprised that the guy that moved from the Yankees to the Mets, Juan Soto, is not included. He was snubbed this year. He's not having the kind of year apparently that people were looking for, and so they wanted fresh faces for the home run contest. So they took a guy from the Minnesota Twins, Byron Buxton, instead of several of the players who had been included in the past. And I guess it just shows you that baseball is at least paying attention to what some of its fans care about, more so than perhaps the NBA and Mr. Silver have been paying attention. But I think baseball adding that home run derby a few years ago was a good idea, Justin, to keep the interest up. If it was only home run derby, it would suck. People that are baseball fans want to see baseball played. But it's an interesting part of the game, hitting home runs. And I'd say that the hockey game, the way they did the Four Nations thing for their All-Star game, where you could be playing against members of your own team, because a member of your team, if you're playing for instance, the Las Vegas Knights, a member of your team could be from Canada, from the US, from Finland, from Sweden, and so forth. And you're playing against them for the first time as a pro. I think that's kind of interesting. So being creative with it is a good idea. Just doing crap like some of the NBA stuff has done, I think is why their ratings are down.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that. I didn't even know about the Four Nations thing. I feel like a lot of other sports should do that. That's super, super cool. What a really cool way to kind of mix it up and probably gain a lot of viewership. That's really, really incredible.
Yeah, and obviously you could expand that into Japan and so forth, because obviously Dominican Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico are some of the biggest feeders into the major leagues. But I wouldn't dismiss any of those Japanese players. Ohani being the one that you can't dismiss, but there have been a lot of others that have come up and done spectacularly at the major league level. And you'd think that sooner or later, Major League Baseball might try something like the Four Nations. I think it would be interesting. Well, Justin, thank you very much, sir. You guys will be lucky to have Justin hopefully here again tomorrow, because Pete's got 2 days of the MRI for the NFL. He does those, of course, because the NFL is trying to cut down on CTE. And one of the ways they do it is they take a look at players that played for a long time that took a lot of hits. And that would be Pete. And luckily, knock on wood, Pete's been happy and healthy, despite the fact that he's broken almost every finger and his knees and all that. His head is still great. So we're very thankful for that. Well, Justin, have a great day. Great job, sir. And we will see everybody tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.